Yes, welcome everybody. It's Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It's October 2nd, 2019. The show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. You can find us at marijuanatimes.org. Click the video tab there to find the show. A lot of great articles from great writers as well at marijuanatimes.org. Go check us out. Today we're talking about legalization in Florida. A few attempts taking place for next year. Also, San Diego cracking down on marijuana billboards, but loosening some other restrictions. And we'll talk a little bit about the Senate version of the safe banking bill, the marijuana cannabis banking bill that passed the House. This was last week. So what's going to happen in the Senate? Well, we don't know. We will discuss it coming up. All of those things are coming up. But first, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Grow safe and poison-free with Natureside. Don't use harmful chemicals or banned pesticides. Be regulatory compliant in the state that you are growing in. Do these things with Natureside. Nature-side.com. Proud sponsor of Cannabis News. Thank you, Natureside's first story by yours truly, marijuanatimes.org. Will corporate greed bring legalization to Florida? Basically, right now, there are a few attempts at getting legalization, adult use legalization, on the ballot next year in Florida. Next year being, of course, 2020. The one that seems to have at least the most backing financially right now is Make It Legal Florida. It's backed by MedMen and Sutera Wellness. Of course, MedMen, if you don't know their name from the cannabis world, you probably know their name from South Park. They were slammed in the season 23 premiere of South Park for being against home growing, and that's basically the problem with the problem that activists have with their measure and their attempt is that there is no home growing in it. We looked at home grow, and I think it's something probably for the next chapter of the movement in Florida, but at this point, I don't think it's something we can get across the finish line at 60+%, said MedMen's Director of Government Affairs, Nick Hansen. Of course, 60% needed for a constitutional amendment in Florida. If you remember the battle over medical marijuana in 2014, you're familiar with the 60% threshold in Florida. So what they say is, well, we don't think we can include home growing and get it across the finish line. Obviously, law enforcement has a problem with home growing. Some more conservative voters have a problem with home growing. But most people are going to believe, and I think rightfully so, that the reason for the no home growing is Sutera and MedMen want to protect their dispensaries and their retail shops or whatever from competition. Excuse me. My litmus test for the cannabis industry is it going to give cannabis consumers and cannabis users more choice? That's what I base it on. People worry about, there's going to be a few big companies at the top of the marijuana industry dominating the industry. Yeah, probably. It happens in every industry. Doesn't mean they're going to be the same companies. I mean, we don't still go to the A&P grocery or do our retail shopping at Sears, do we? Of course not. There'll be fluctuations, and there'll be a group of bigger corporations at the top because of their size. They can make better quality products at lower prices, and that's what most people are looking for. If you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, people they'll wring their hands about the fact that people want lower priced items and better quality. And they will always want that, whether it's a commodity or a service or whatever. They want better quality and lower prices. Say it with me. Can I be any more condescending? I don't know. Let's see. Better quality, lower prices, and big corporations can do that. It doesn't mean that there can't be other businesses under them taking up the rest of the market share and being profitable and successful and employing people. Target and Walmart and Amazon, they dominate retail. But are those the only three places you can shop? Of course not. That's nuts to even believe that. That if there's going to be 3 or 4 big corporations in marijuana, then everyone else is going to be forced out. The only people that can do that is the government. If regulations are too restrictive, if licensing fees are too high, if taxes are too much, then most of the smaller businesses will not even be able to get into the market. But if those barriers are low enough, there's room for a lot of companies under the big corporations. You don't want to buy the Marlboro weed or from the Walmart of weed or whatever. You can spend more for craft marijuana or whatever you want to call it, whatever it'll be. Like I said, there's a million places you can shop. But most people will buy something from Amazon, Walmart, or Target. Doesn't mean there's not thousands of other profitable businesses that sell things, because there are, obviously. And that's the same the way it'll be for marijuana. And as far as the home growing thing, because, when you're talking about marijuana, that's something that doesn't really come into play in other industries. The fact, well, it does some, but not most. You can just make what you want or create what you want at home. Again, what gives cannabis users more choice? That's my question. And obviously, home growing gives them much more choice. If you want to buy marijuana at all, grow your own. Go buy the equipment, buy the seeds, whatever. Get the seeds from a friend, borrow the equipment, build the equipment if you have the know-how, whatever. Build a light for your weed plant. I don't know. I couldn't do it. Maybe you can. But you should have the choice. There is no legalization without home growing. There's not. To restrict that choice from people is ridiculous. And for whatever reason, Soterra and MedMen are doing it, I am against it. Now, if I was faced with a choice of prohibition or voting for that and then trying for home growing later, I would probably vote for that. But in the beginning, I would support something that more aligned with my beliefs, which would be home growing. Regulate Florida, whatever. Whoever. Go do the research. If you live in Florida, because it's going to be your vote that is going to be not the deciding factor, but you'll be voting for it. You'll be voting on it. It'll be on your ballot that you see when you go in and vote. That's what I'm trying to say. This next story. San Diego Union Tribune.com. San Diego cracking down on marijuana billboards, but loosening other rules. Some sort of trade-off. San Diego is moving forward. The long-awaited crackdown on marijuana billboard ads is a part of a package of new city regulations and rules changes. In addition to limiting where billboards can be placed, the city is proposing to loosen restrictions on the locations of marijuana dispensaries and marijuana production facilities, such as indoor pot farms and factories making marijuana edibles. Now, again, you could put the litmus test to that. What gives consumers more choice? Less billboards and more MedMen. I just noticed this says MedMen on that. After what I just talked about, and I've seen that billboard on that story 8 times at least. I just now noticed it says MedMen on it. It's crazy. What we notice and what we don't notice. Anyway, less billboards, but more places to grow, more places to buy. I mean, if that's a trade-off that's faced, then it results in more cannabis, more choice for cannabis consumers and cannabis users. Obviously, cannabis on a billboard, I mean, you can still see candy-flavored vodka commercials in the middle of the day on basic cable. I mean, what are we talking about here? I don't think it's that big of a deal. But they're going to do what they're going to do, and I don't think it's really... I mean, if the businesses there want to fight it, by all means, go ahead, and I support that. But in the end, if we're talking about that kind of the transaction, more businesses, more growers, all of that is good. The package of reforms also includes replacing marijuana with cannabis in all city codes and documents. The San Diego Planning Commission is scheduled to consider the proposed reforms on October 24th, with the City Council expected to give them final approval by the end of the year. So, things going down in San Diego. This last story comes from thehill.com. Nearing finish line, fight for cannabis banking bill shifts to the Senate. Advocates are hopeful that a bill that would allow the financial sector to finally serve cannabis businesses could head to President Trump's desk by the end of the year. The House, on a strong bipartisan vote last week, passed the Secure and Fair Enforcement, otherwise known as SAFE Banking Act, which would allow banks and financial institutions to work with cannabis businesses. The bill now faces an uncertain future in the Republican-held Senate, with little time left on the legislative calendar, and Congress already distracted by funding fights and the House Democratic impeachment inquiry into Trump. The supporters see growing momentum for the legislation and are hopeful they are nearing the finish line despite challenges. The focus now on Senate Banking Committee and its chairman, Senator Mike Crapo, who is a Republican from Idaho, who has pledged to take action on the issue, while Crapo is personally opposed to marijuana legalization. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, by the way. I can't imagine his name is Crapo. Maybe Crapo, something like that. I say Crapo because I just think it's funnier. If that's right, then it's even funnier because I've never heard his name spoken. So Crapo told CQ last week that his panel will consider the Safe Banking Act or a similar bill as soon as possible. Chairman Crapo indicated he wanted to get a cannabis banking. It gets funnier the more I say it. That's weird. To get a cannabis banking bill marked up by the end of the year, and we anticipate it will be similar to the Safe Banking Act, said ex-Representative Carlos Curbelo, Republican from Florida, who is a strategic advisor for the Cannabis Trade Federation. So that remains to be seen, and if it does get through the Senate and clears all those hurdles, what will Trump do about it? I would imagine that if he gets through all that he would just go ahead and sign it. I can't imagine why he wouldn't if the House and the Senate both passed it. And he said multiple times that we want to let the states decide. Well, getting out of the way of banking problems will let states set up their own institutions, their own frameworks and things for credit unions and banks and all that for lending and depositing and such. You'll get the federal government out of the way, so hopefully Trump would go ahead and sign that. But first, of course, as I said, and as the Hill said, and as everybody knows, it's going to get through committee in the Senate. Call your senator, write email, carrier pigeon, etc. Let your feelings known. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show. Coming up on 500 episodes of Cannabis News. That's crazy. That episode will be on Friday. I'm going to change in the background some after the 500 episodes. Maybe move the flag over, get a new poster, things of that nature. I don't know. It's a lot of decisions. It's the kind of decisions I wrestle with as the host of Cannabis News. The burden that I bear, and I bear alone. I know. This is very dramatic. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the show, liking, sharing, commenting on the videos, all that stuff. And we'll see you next time right here on Cannabis News.